Chapter 5 continuing. About noon, a truck jolted along the narrow lane that led to the kennels. It stopped in front of the house, and a man climbed out. He spoke briefly to Tim, and together they walked toward Sepala's pen. The pups were chasing one another, splashing through puddles. At the sight of Tim, they forgot their game and ran to the fence. With excited yips, they stood on their hind legs, resting their front paws on the wire mesh. Tim opened the gate, and the men walked in. The stranger picked up the pups one at a time and looked them over carefully. He opened their mouths, ran his hands down their legs, and turned over their paws, inspecting the pads. He felt their shoulder blades. He even lifted their tails. The man put Digger down on the ground and ran a hand along his back. "That one's not for sale," said Tim. "We figure to keep him." The man backed away and tugged at his beard. The rain dripped off his cap. "You know a good animal when you see one," he said. "Digger's got the makings of a lead dog." The man snorted. "How can you tell about a 10-week-old pup?" "I've got a feel. He's big and tough, and he loves to race. Look at the way his bones and muscles are put together. Full chest, long back, long thighs, and short hocks. See the slope of his shoulders and the reach in his upper arms? He'll be a winner, like his father." The man sighed. He looked at the other pups, then cleared his throat. "All the rest for sale?" "Sure," said Tim. "Take any of the others. $450. The stranger made an odd sound in his throat, then picked up Cricket. After inspecting the pup's teeth, the man set the pup down and stared at her. There was a long silence. The stranger made up his mind. He pulled out his wallet and said, "She's got good lines, might make a good swing dog, and she'll have some fine pups down the road. I'll take her." The men shook hands. With the stranger carrying Cricket, they left the kennel and walked through the rain toward the house. Before long, the rain stopped. A narrow beam of sunlight broke through the clouds. Granite stood patiently at the fence, waiting for his sister. He did not understand why the stranger had carried Cricket away, but he was sure that she would be back soon. A robin dropped to the ground inside the fence. As it hopped along, it turned its head to the side, each yellow eye inspecting the earth for worms. Each hop it took closer to Granite. Entranced by the bird, the pup left the fence. He stood still, hoping the bird would not notice him. As it came close, he tensed his muscles and sprang. The bird was too quick. With a loud tweet, it flew over the fence. Disappointed, Granite watched the bird fly toward a tall tree. He was so absorbed that he did not hear the approaching footsteps or the sound of the gate. Without a word, Tim picked him off the ground. Startled, he looked up. Beside Tim stood the stranger, but without Cricket. When Granite did not see his sister, he felt a prickle of danger. He pushed his nose beneath Tim's arm, making himself as small as possible. It did no good. Tim pulled Granite out of his hiding place and thrust the puppy toward the stranger. The man's hand stretched out to receive him. Granite could not breathe. His chest was tight. It felt as if Shadow, the big lead dog, were sitting on it. The stranger grasped Granite firmly and brought the pup's face level with his own. The man's face was covered with a heavy black beard, which trapped the odor of his last meal. Over the scent of human males and of cricket, Granite could smell other dogs. He waited, afraid of the man's next move. The stranger set Granite on a heap of straw and stepped back to see his lines. Granite's head hung low, his ears drooped, and his tail fell between his legs. The two men began to talk. At first, the stranger was hesitant. "He's smaller than his brother," he said. He felt Granite's shoulders. "There's no guarantee that he'll have the strength I want." "I can't swear he'll be a lead dog," Tim said, "but I know he'll be a credit to any racing team. Racing's in his blood." The stranger dropped to his knees and again felt Granite's back and legs. He made a series of small, quiet sounds, then got to his feet. Granite couldn't understand what the men were saying, but when he heard the sound "Granite" come from the stranger's mouth, his ears stood up. He looked at the stranger, then at Tim, puzzled. Neither glanced at him. He watched as the stranger ducked his head once and grasped Tim's hand. That was what they had done before the stranger carried Cricket away. Granite did not wait. Before anyone could grab him, he bolted. He ran to the doghouse, where Seppala was curled up on dry straw and huddled next to her. Then he whimpered. Seppala seemed to know that something was wrong. She whined as she bathed him, each stroke of her tongue a loving caress. Granite stopped whimpering, but he was still afraid. He didn't want to leave his mother and Nugget. He didn't want to leave Kate and Tim. He didn't even want to leave Digger, but he could think of nothing to do. Tim pulled Granite away from his mother. Granite looked about, but saw no way to escape. His stomach felt full of stones. The stranger took the pup and left the kennel. Granite looked over his shoulder and saw Digger and Nugget standing at the fence. Their tails dragged, and they looked sad. As the stranger passed the house, the door flew open and Kate ran out. She called, and the man stopped. Taking Granite in her arms, she held him close and petted him. The little dog's heart lifted. He knew that Kate would not let the man take him away. She would always protect him. Granite nestled next to her heart, waiting for the stranger to leave. Kate whispered softly to the puppy. He stretched up and with the tips of his teeth gently nibbled the edge of her ear to let her know how happy he felt. She stroked Granite again. A tear rolled down her cheek. Granite licked it off. Suddenly, Kate thrust him toward the stranger and turned away. The stones in Granite's stomach churned. He trembled. He couldn't understand how Kate could let a stranger take him. The man carried Granite to his truck. It was like the one Tim used to haul dogs to races. Behind the cab were 2 rows of small doors. In the center of each door was a round hole. Cricket's head stuck out one hole. She yipped a welcome. The stranger opened the door next to Cricket. From inside came an old smell of other dogs. The man started to put Granite into the opening. The puppy struggled, but the man did not let go. He held Granite so tightly that his fingers jabbed into the little dog's body. He thrust Granite toward the dark cavity. The puppy was desperate. He looked around, but there was no one to help him. In a panic, he sank his teeth into the stranger's hand and bit as hard as he could. The man howled with pain and pulled back. Swearing, he jerked his hand to his mouth. Daylight opened beneath his arm. Granite squirmed past the door and through the narrow space under the stranger's arm. The man grabbed at him, but the hand seized air. Granite jumped to the ground, darted around the back of the truck, and ran into the trees. As he sprinted through rain-soaked ferns, he could hear angry shouts.